No, I'm not stepping aside anymore.
Eva stood near the edge of the room, close enough to hear her name spoken, far enough to be ignored. Arthur had arrived with the woman everyone recognized as his date, not his wife. His hand rested at the small of the other woman's back. Cameras lifted. Smiles followed. A quiet voice cut through the noise. No, it was Eva. A staff member leaned toward her and whispered for her to move aside. Eva did not shift. She took one step forward instead. The room slowed. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Eyes turned. Arthur looked at her. His smile faded. He did not speak. Eva met his gaze and held it. She did not raise her voice. She did not explain. She did not apologize. She stood where she was meant to stand. The woman beside Arthur glanced over, confused. Then embarrassed. Then still. Arthur's hand dropped. He seemed unsure where to place it. For the first time in a long while, he looked small. Eva felt heat rush to her face. Shame pressed in. So did something stronger. Resolve. She had hidden for too long. She had waited for permission she never needed. If you are new here, welcome. If you return for stories about dignity, love, and the cost of silence, you belong here. Stay with this story. Drop a like if you believe respect matters. Subscribe if you want stories where love earns its place. Arthur opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Eva did not step back. Arthur had faced boardrooms without blinking. He had handled losses, lawsuits, and hostile deals with steady calm. None of that prepared him for the way the room shifted when Eva stood her ground. The noise faded first. Laughter dropped away. Glasses stopped clinking. People sensed a line had been crossed, even if they did not yet understand how. Arthur felt every eye move toward him. He searched for a solution, a signal, a smooth exit. Nothing came. His body stayed still while his thoughts raced. He realized how little control he had in this moment. The story he had built no longer followed his script. Eva did not look angry. That unsettled him more than anger ever could. Her face held quiet certainty. She was not asking for space. She was claiming it. Someone cleared their throat. Another person stepped back, creating room between Eva and the woman at Arthur's side. The separation felt final. Arthur tried to speak. His voice caught. He lowered his gaze, then lifted it again, hoping Eva would soften. She did not. In that silence, he understood something he had avoided for years. He had trained himself to hide her because he feared judgment. Now judgment arrived anyway, sharper because of his choices. Eva waited. Not for him to fix it, not for an excuse. She waited because she had time now. Arthur felt the weight of the pause. The room was no longer his. Eva had asked herself this question many times. Why now? Why here? Why this moment? The answer was simple. Silence had stopped protecting her. For years she told herself, staying quiet meant loyalty. She believed patience showed strength. She believed love required endurance. Each time Arthur chose another space, another event, another woman to stand beside him, Eva convinced herself waiting would lead him back. It never did. Standing there, she felt the weight of every night she ate alone. Every time she watched his life unfold from a distance. Every time she smiled in private and disappeared in public. Those memories pressed together, not as anger, but clarity. She did not step forward to embarrass him. She stepped forward because stepping back had cost her too much. Arthur saw it in her eyes. This was not a reaction. This was a decision made long before this room, long before this evening. The moment only revealed it. Eva realized something else. Love without visibility turns into erasure. Marriage without respect becomes performance. She refused both. Her chest rose slowly. Her hands stayed steady at her sides. She did not need words to explain what years of neglect had already proven. This was the first time she chose herself without apology. If you have ever stayed quiet to keep peace, this moment is for you. Stay with this story. Your voice matters more than comfort. Arthur shifted his feet. Eva did not move. The woman beside Arthur stepped away on her own. No one asked her to. She adjusted her posture, then looked around, aware she no longer belonged in the center of the frame. Her role ended the moment Eva refused to disappear. Arthur noticed too late. He reached out, not to stop the woman, not to reach Eva, but to steady himself. His world relied on control, timing, and presentation. All three failed him at once. Eva felt the eyes on her, some curious, some uncomfortable, a few understanding. She accepted every look without flinching. Hiding had taught her how heavy invisibility felt. Being seen carried weight, but it also brought relief. Arthur finally spoke her name. Soft, careful, as if volume could undo damage. Eva did not answer. That silence did more than shouting ever could. It told him she was no longer explaining herself. It told him this moment belonged to her, not him. People began to look away. The room resumed motion in fragments. Conversations restarted in low tones. What had changed could not be undone, yet no one wanted to be caught witnessing it. Eva turned slightly, not to leave, but to face him fully. Arthur saw it then. This was not defiance. This was the end of permission. The distance between them felt wider than any room he had ever entered. And as Eva stood there, fully present, the story did what Arthur feared most. It stopped centering him. Eva felt the moment settle inside her chest. Not relief. Not victory. Awareness. This was the line she crossed, and there was no returning to who she had been before it. Arthur watched her, as if seeing her clearly for the first time in years. Not the quiet presence at home. Not the woman who waited. The woman who chose when to stay, and when to step forward. The room no longer mattered. What mattered began long before this night. Before the wealth. Before the invitations. Before the excuses framed as protection. It began when two people met without status shaping their roles. Arthur remembered it too. A smaller life. Fewer eyes. Honest laughter. He had loved her then without fear. Somewhere along the way, fear replaced love, and control followed close behind. Eva turned away at last. Not in retreat. In closure. If you are still here, stay. This story is not about a public moment. It is about how private choices lead us there. Drop a like if you believe dignity should never be negotiated. Subscribe if you want stories where love grows through accountability, not appearance. As Eva walked toward the exit, Arthur stood frozen, holding the weight of what he risked losing. And this is where their story truly began. Eva met Arthur before his name carried weight. He was sharp, driven, and restless, yet unguarded in ways few people noticed. They crossed paths through ordinary routine, not through status or advantage. Conversations began without agenda. They spoke about work, family, values, and the kind of life each wanted to build. Eva listened more than she spoke, and Arthur found himself filling the quiet with honesty. What drew him in was not admiration, it was ease. Eva did not compete for attention. She did not perform. She stayed present. Her questions landed with care. Her responses came from reflection, not haste. Arthur felt steady around her, as though ambition could pause without losing momentum. Their connection grew through repetition, not spectacle. Shared walks, simple meals, long talks that ended without urgency. Eva's world felt ordered in a way his never had. She carried calm without effort, strength without display. Arthur began to associate peace with her presence. Eva noticed his ambition early. She saw his hunger to build something lasting. She respected it, yet she never felt small beside it. He valued that. Around her, he did not need to prove progress or success. He could exist without defending his future. Love arrived quietly. No announcement. No grand declaration. One day they simply realized life felt lighter together. That beginning mattered. It set the tone. Their bond formed in a space where nothing needed protection, where nothing needed hiding. Arthur did not yet understand how rare that was, or how easily fear could undo it. Warmth filled that season. Safety defined it. Neither knew how fragile safety could become once attention entered the room. Their relationship grew in small, contained spaces. Eva preferred quiet settings where conversation could unfold without interruption. Arthur welcomed it. Privacy gave him room to think, to lower the edge he carried into every meeting and plan. Together, they created a rhythm that felt intentional. They shared meals prepared at home, seated close enough to reach across the table without effort. Laughter came easily. often over nothing important. Eva found joy in ordinary details. Arthur learned to slow down beside her. Simplicity became their shared language. They avoided excess without discussing it. Not out of principle, but preference. Neither needed an audience to validate connection. Even when Arthur's work demanded longer hours, Eva never competed for time. She trusted consistency more than reassurance. Arthur admired that trust. It made him feel capable, respected, and grounded. Around Eva, success felt personal rather than performative. He brought his plans to her before anyone else. Her reactions mattered more than approval elsewhere. When he proposed, it felt natural. There was no spectacle. Only a quiet certainty that life together would remain honest if they protected what they had built. Eva accepted without hesitation. She believed in shared intention more than promises. Marriage followed the same pattern. Intimate, thoughtful, centered on commitment rather than display. Eva believed love thrived best when protected from noise. Arthur agreed, though his understanding of protection was still shallow. In those early days, privacy served them both. It felt like shelter, not separation. Eva trusted that simplicity reflected sincerity. Arthur believed shielding their life preserved its purity. Neither realized how thin the line was between guarding something precious and removing it from view entirely. Arthur noticed Eva's strength most when life pressed in. She handled stress without display. She solved problems quietly, without needing credit. When plans changed or pressure rose, she adjusted instead of reacting. That steadiness drew him closer. He came from a world driven by urgency. Deadlines, expectations, and constant evaluation shaped his days. Eva moved at a different pace. She thought before speaking. She chose words carefully. She paused when others rushed. Around her, Arthur felt less divided between who he was and who he needed to be. Eva did not compete with his ambition. She supported it without surrendering herself to it. She asked questions that forced him to think beyond outcomes. She challenged assumptions without confrontation. Her confidence did not rely on dominance. It rested on clarity. Arthur began to rely on her presence. After difficult meetings, he sought her calm. After setbacks, he leaned on her perspective. She never minimized his stress, but she refused to let it define him. That balance impressed him more than praise ever could. He told himself this was partnership, that her steadiness complemented his drive, that their differences strengthened the bond. In many ways, he was right. What he failed to notice was how often he framed her strength as something to preserve rather than share. He admired her most in private. He valued her most when no one else could see. Without realizing it, he began to associate her worth with containment. Eva sensed the shift before she named it. Compliments began to carry limits. Praise came with conditions. He spoke about keeping things simple and safe more often. The words sounded kind. The intention felt protective. At first, Eva accepted it as care. Arthur had always valued her calm. She believed he was honoring it. She did not yet see how admiration, when mixed with fear, can reshape itself into restriction. The first change appeared quietly. Arthur stopped inviting Eva to certain gatherings, explaining it was easier for her to stay home. He said the environments were demanding, the expectations tiring. He framed his choice as consideration. Eva believed him. He began separating worlds. Work remained public. Home stayed private. At first, the divide felt reasonable. Arthur's responsibilities were growing. His schedule filled quickly. Eva adjusted without protest. She trusted his judgment and respected his focus. Then the explanations shifted. He spoke about perception, about how people misunderstood quiet strength, about how attention could distort what mattered. He insisted he was protecting their life from intrusion. Eva wanted to believe him. She noticed how often decisions were made without her presence, not against her, but around her. Arthur did not ask. He informed. He spoke of balance while setting the terms alone. Their dinners grew shorter. His thoughts stayed elsewhere. Eva listened more than she spoke, unsure whether to push or wait. She told herself, seasons change. She told herself patience still mattered. Arthur felt the shift too, though he framed it differently. He told himself he was managing growth. That separation reduced pressure. That privacy kept them intact. Each choice felt small, justified, temporary. Together, they crossed a line without marking it. Protection replaced partnership. Containment replaced sharing. The warmth remained, but it carried tension. Eva began to sense absence where presence once lived. Arthur noticed her quiet deepen, but mistook it for agreement. Then came the moment that changed everything. Arthur's work drew public attention for the first time. Recognition arrived. Invitations followed. His name began to move without him. And with that first breakthrough, the distance he had built gained momentum. Arthur's work crossed a threshold quietly, then all at once. One project gained attention, then another followed. Meetings multiplied. His calendar filled weeks ahead. People began to recognize his name before they met him. Praise arrived in the form of invitations and requests for his presence. At home, Eva noticed the shift through absence. Arthur returned later. His phone stayed closer. Conversations shortened. He spoke about growth and responsibility with a tone that carried weight. Eva listened, proud of what he built, careful not to interrupt momentum. Arthur believed this phase would pass. He treated success like a season that demanded sacrifice. He assured Eva things would settle once stability arrived. She nodded, trusting his sense of timing. What neither acknowledged was how public attention changed the shape of their marriage. Arthur's identity expanded outward. Eva's remained contained. He became visible. She stayed still. Arthur did not intend exclusion. He framed his rise as collective progress. When he spoke about the future, he included Eva in theory. In practice, he moved ahead alone. Eva felt pride mixed with distance. She celebrated his wins quietly, from their home. She adjusted routines to match his pace. She told herself presence mattered more than visibility. Arthur stopped noticing what she surrendered to keep him steady. He assumed understanding where silence lived. He mistook patience for comfort. This was when the wound began forming. Not through cruelty, through momentum unchecked. Arthur's public rise gave him confidence. It also narrowed his focus. He did not see how easily a shared life can tilt when one person becomes a symbol and the other becomes unseen. Eva felt the shift before she could explain it. Something essential was changing shape, and she did not know how to stop it without becoming a problem. Arthur asked Eva to stay home one evening. He said it casually, almost kindly. The setting would be crowded. Conversations would be shallow. He told her she would be more comfortable avoiding it. For now, he added. Eva agreed without hesitation. She trusted his instinct. She believed consideration guided his choice. She stayed home and waited for him, preparing dinner late into the night. The next request followed weeks later. Then, another, each time framed as temporary. Each time explained as protection. Eva noticed the pattern but resisted naming it. She told herself patience still served them. Arthur grew used to deciding without discussion. He believed he was reducing strain. He spoke about image and expectation, as if they were forces beyond control. Eva absorbed his reasoning quietly. She began to feel scheduled around rather than included. Invitations reached Arthur directly. Decisions formed elsewhere. Eva learned about events after they passed. She did not argue. She did not demand inclusion. She adjusted. Arthur interpreted her compliance as agreement. He told himself she preferred distance from noise. He overlooked the difference between preference and exclusion. For now stretched into months. Eva's world narrowed to waiting. Waiting for updates. Waiting for his return. Waiting for the moment their lives would realign. Loneliness did not arrive dramatically. It settled slowly. Eva felt it during dinners eaten alone. During conversations cut short by calls. During moments when she realized she no longer knew the people shaping Arthur's days. She remained calm. She remained kind. She remained quiet. Arthur did not notice how often she was no longer asked. Arthur dressed with efficiency that night. His movements felt practiced. Eva watched from the doorway as he adjusted his jacket and checked his phone. He explained where he was going, not as an invitation, but as information. He kissed her cheek and promised not to stay long. Eva stood still after the door closed. The house felt larger without him. She moved through familiar rooms, unsettled by the silence she had learned to accept. That evening marked a shift. Arthur stepped fully into a public role without her beside him. No announcement marked it, No conversation acknowledged its meaning, yet something had changed. At the event, Arthur moved easily. He spoke with confidence. People listened. Photos were taken. He smiled the way he did when performing success. Eva imagined the room without bitterness. She pictured him standing tall, representing everything he built. She felt pride first, then a quiet ache followed. Arthur did not check in during the event. He assumed she was fine. Eva assumed he was busy. Distance grew without conflict. When Arthur returned home, he spoke briefly about the night. He focused on outcomes, names, opportunities. Eva listened, offering encouragement. He did not mention how it felt to stand alone. She did not ask. That night, Eva lay awake longer than usual. She sensed the line between partnership and separation thinning, not broken, but stretched. Arthur slept easily, confident he was moving forward. Eva remained still, wondering when forward stopped including her. Eva saw the photos the next morning. She did not seek them out. They appeared naturally, shared widely. Arthur stood among unfamiliar faces, confident and composed. He looked like a man stepping into his future. She studied the images carefully, not out of jealousy, out of recognition. She searched for herself and found nothing. Eva realized how easily a life could continue without acknowledgement, how quickly absence could be normalized. She saw how others now defined Arthur's world, without knowing she existed within it. Loneliness settled deeper. It did not hurt sharply, it weighed. Eva felt replaced by an idea of who Arthur needed to be, a version that did not require her presence. She wondered when her role changed, when waiting became expected, when silence became assumed. Arthur mentioned the photos casually later that day. He laughed about attention. Eva smiled and listened. She did not mention what the images stirred. Have you ever stayed quiet to keep peace? Have you ever watched your place shrink without protest? Eva closed her phone and set it aside. She understood then that something precious was being edited out, not through malice, through neglect. Arthur believed his success protected them. Eva began to see how it erased her. She did not confront him. Not yet. But the wound had formed. And once formed, it would not heal through silence alone. Eva did not meet the other woman the way people expect. There was no confrontation, no sharp exchange, no scene designed for attention. The introduction arrived through absence. At first, Eva noticed a shift in language. Arthur began referring to someone new in passing, a colleague, a contact, a presence tied to his schedule. The name appeared casually, never emphasized, yet repeated often enough to linger. Eva listened without reaction. She had learned how to read patterns rather than words. The woman entered Arthur's life publicly before she entered it personally. Eva saw her standing near him in photos from events Eva had stopped attending. The positioning was familiar, close enough to suggest importance, far enough to deny explanation. Eva studied those images with care. She did not feel anger right away. She felt displacement. The woman was polished, comfortable in public settings. She spoke easily with people Arthur needed to impress. She did not look like a secret. She looked like a solution. Arthur never announced the relationship. He let it appear gradually, as though normalization would soften impact. Eva noticed how easily others accepted the woman's presence. No questions followed. No hesitation lingered. Eva realized the introduction was not personal. It was strategic. The pain did not come from jealousy. It came from recognition. Someone else had stepped into the space Eva was asked to leave. Arthur continued speaking to Eva as he always had. His tone stayed warm. His routines remained familiar. He behaved as though nothing essential had changed. Eva felt the shift deeply. The woman was not a replacement in private. She was a replacement in view. And that distinction changed everything. Eva did not ask questions she already knew the answers to. She observed instead. She listened to what Arthur explained and what he avoided. Truth revealed itself through consistency. Arthur mentioned events where the woman appeared beside him, always framed as convenience. She understood his world. She handled attention well. Eva noticed how often these explanations centered ease, not connection. Information arrived slowly. A mention here, an image there. Conversations paused when Eva entered the room. Arthur adjusted his phone angle when messages arrived. Ava absorbed it all without interruption. She learned not through discovery, but through accumulation. The truth settled gently but firmly. There was another woman occupying space Ava no longer held, not only physically, but symbolically. Arthur never admitted wrongdoing. He did not feel caught. He felt justified. He believed circumstances required adaptation. Ava sensed that. It hurt more than denial would have. She understood then that clarity did not always require confession. Behavior spoke with precision. Eva did not cry. She did not confront. She continued daily life, as though equilibrium remained intact. Inside, something shifted. She began to see how quietly decisions had been made without her, how easily her role had been revised without consent. The realization arrived without drama. It did not rush. It settled. Ava accepted the truth not as betrayal, but as information. Something had changed. Something had been taken. And Arthur had not noticed how carefully she was paying attention. Ava examined her feelings honestly. What surprised her most was what did not hurt. The idea of Arthur sharing attention elsewhere did not shatter her. What wounded her was how publicly it happened, how easily others assumed the woman belonged at his side. Ava was not angry that another woman existed. She was hurt that she herself no longer existed in view. Marriage had become something private and silent. The other woman became visible and acknowledged. That imbalance cut deeper than secrecy ever could. Ava realized Arthur did not see the difference. He treated public presence as function, not meaning. He told himself the relationship did not threaten his marriage, because it did not replace affection at home. He missed the point entirely. Love survives private difficulty. It does not survive erasure. Ava felt herself withdraw emotionally, not as punishment, but preservation. She stopped offering reassurance. She stopped filling silence. She began observing, rather than participating. Arthur noticed her quiet deepen. He assumed stress. He did not connect it to his choices. Ava no longer explained herself. She no longer sought reassurance. She adjusted inwardly, protecting what dignity remained. Detachment did not feel dramatic. It felt measured. She understood then that betrayal was not the presence of another woman. It was the absence of respect. The moment arrived without warning. Eva passed a hallway, where voices carried farther than expected. Arthur was speaking. His tone held familiarity and ease. The other voice responded softly, confidently. Eva slowed her steps. Arthur spoke about timing, about optics, about keeping things steady until a certain phase passed. He assured the woman the situation was temporary, necessary, manageable. He spoke as though Eva were an obstacle, not a person. The woman laughed lightly. She accepted his reasoning without resistance. The exchange felt rehearsed. Eva stood still, unseen. Every word landed clearly. Arthur described his marriage as stable, uncomplicated. He framed Eva as understanding, patient, willing to wait. Eva felt clarity settle in her chest. He had mistaken her silence for consent. The conversation ended. Footsteps moved away. Eva remained where she stood, steady and quiet. This was the moment detachment solidified into decision. She did not feel shock. She felt confirmation. Arthur had been managing narratives without her knowledge. He had been assigning her role without her voice. Eva understood then that love without agency becomes captivity. She turned away before either of them noticed her presence. What she chose next would not come from anger. It would come from self-respect. Eva stopped asking questions because answers no longer mattered. She had learned how truth revealed itself without permission. Asking would only invite explanation shaped to soothe, not to change. Arthur noticed the shift, but misunderstood it. He assumed acceptance. He assumed peace. Eva no longer corrected him. She listened when he spoke. She nodded when he explained delays, absences, and decisions already made. Her calm unsettled him at times, yet he welcomed it. Silence made life easier. Ava's quiet was not surrender. It was focus. She stopped checking his schedule. She stopped tracking his movements. She stopped waiting for reassurance that never arrived. Each pause felt intentional, not passive. Inside, Eva gathered herself. She began separating what she felt from what she showed. That distance gave her clarity. She saw patterns without emotion clouding them. She saw how often she had bent without being asked, how often she had filled space meant for partnership. Arthur continued living as before. He did not notice how Eva's attention shifted inward. She no longer revolved around his orbit. She began standing still while the world moved around her. Silence gave her power. It allowed her to hear herself again. She recognized how much energy she had spent maintaining comfort for others, how little she had preserved for herself. This quiet was not fragile. It was deliberate. Eva was not waiting anymore. She was observing, and observation sharpened resolve. Eva prepared quietly, because loud preparation invites interference. She did not announce change. She did not threaten consequence. She moved with care and patience. She began organizing personal records. She reviewed accounts. She gathered documents she once trusted Arthur to manage. Each action felt grounding. She was reclaiming responsibility she had handed away slowly over time. Eva adjusted routines. She spent more time alone by choice. She rediscovered comfort in her own company. She remembered how capable she was before marriage softened her edges. Arthur assumed she was resting. He did not question her independence. He had grown used to her accommodating nature. He did not imagine she was preparing for departure. Eva did not resent him while she planned. Resentment clouds judgment. She stayed clear, focused. Every step had purpose. She simplified her space. She removed items tied to expectation rather than meaning. She packed nothing yet. She prepared emotionally first. What surprised Eva most was how steady she felt. Fear did not guide her. Anger did not rush her. She felt calm. That calm was strength. She understood now that leaving was not about escape. It was about alignment. Her life no longer matched her values. Adjustment was necessary. Arthur sensed distance, but dismissed it. He believed silence meant stability. Eva let him believe that. Preparation continued without urgency, without sound, without notice. And because of that, it worked. Eva returned to memory not out of regret, but grounding. She remembered the woman she had been before marriage shaped her days around another person's rise. She recalled independence, confidence without permission, dreams that existed without needing approval. She remembered how she once made choices quickly, trusting her instincts. Marriage had softened those instincts, not through demand, through adaptation. Eva had learned to wait, to pause, to defer. She had mistaken patience for growth. Remembering herself brought clarity. She did not want to erase her marriage. She wanted to restore balance. Eva revisited old habits. She read books she once loved. She resumed routines abandoned for convenience. She reached out to people she had distanced herself from without noticing. Each action felt like reclaiming ground. Arthur noticed small changes. Eva dressed differently. She smiled less automatically. She moved with intention rather than reaction. He asked once if something was wrong. Eva answered honestly. No, she said. And it was true. Nothing was wrong inside her anymore. Something had finally settled. Eva understood that strength did not require confrontation. It required certainty. And certainty grew quietly. She was no longer asking who she was to Arthur. She was remembering who she was to herself. Eva began choosing herself without announcement. She declined obligations that drained her. She accepted invitations that brought ease. She prioritized rest over explanation. These choices appeared small. They were not. She reclaimed time. She reclaimed energy. She reclaimed voice, even when unspoken. Each decision strengthened resolve. Arthur sensed change but framed it as independence he admired. He did not realize independence was preparing Eva to leave. Eva stopped adjusting her schedule to match his. She stopped waiting up for him. She stopped arranging her day around his availability. These acts did not punish. They protected. The calm before rupture felt strange. Eva knew a decision approached. She did not rush it. She allowed it to mature. If you are still watching, pause here. What does dignity mean to you? Where have you stayed quiet to keep peace? And what did it cost you? Eva did not answer those questions aloud. She answered them through action. She stood taller. She spoke less. She felt whole again. Arthur noticed her presence change. He could not name why it unsettled him. The rupture was coming. Ava felt it clearly now. Not as threat, as necessity. Silence had become her armor. And armor is worn before battle, not during comfort. Arthur returned after midnight. The house was quiet in a way he barely noticed anymore. Lights were off except for a single lamp in the living room. Ava sat on the sofa, not waiting, not tense, simply present. He loosened his jacket and spoke as he always did. A brief explanation, a reason shaped like obligation. He expected the familiar rhythm. A nod, a soft response, silence that smoothed everything over. Ava listened without interruption. There was no anger in her face, no disappointment he could react to. That unsettled him. He asked if she was tired. She answered calmly, yes. Arthur missed what that word carried. He continued talking, filling space with detail that no longer mattered. Ava stood while he spoke, moving toward the hallway with steady steps. Arthur paused. Something felt off. He followed her with his eyes, still speaking, still assuming this moment would pass like all the others. Ava stopped in the doorway and turned back to him. I'm leaving tonight, she said. The sentence landed cleanly. No build-up, no warning, no explanation attached. Arthur laughed once, short and unsure. He told himself she meant stepping out for air, or taking a drive, or making a point. Ava did not respond. She walked into the bedroom and closed the door. Arthur stood frozen, waiting for the familiar return of reassurance. It did not come. Ava moved through the bedroom with precision. She opened the closet and selected only what she needed. Clothes that belonged to her. Shoes worn for comfort, not presentation. Items chosen for function, not sentiment. She did not rush. She did not hesitate. Packing one bag felt intentional. She was not escaping. She was stepping out of a life that no longer fit. Arthur entered the room slowly. He leaned against the doorway, watching. He asked where she was going. He asked how long she would be gone. His questions stacked quickly, one after another, as though speed might restore control. Ava did not answer them. She folded a sweater and placed it carefully inside the bag. She zipped the compartment with steady hands. Arthur's voice sharpened. He reminded her of everything they shared. He reminded her of time invested. He reminded her of comfort. Ava paused and looked at him. This isn't a discussion, she said. I've already decided. The certainty in her tone unsettled him more than anger would have. There was no invitation to negotiate, no opening to redirect. Arthur realized then that this moment had been forming long before tonight. He felt late to his own life. Ava lifted the bag and moved past him without contact. Arthur stepped aside without thinking, surprised by his own reflex. She did not glance back. That frightened him. Arthur followed Ava into the hallway. His breath quickened. He called her name once, then again, louder this time. She kept walking. Panic rose where confidence usually lived. He reached for logic, for authority, for anything that had worked before. He told her she was overreacting. He told her they could talk tomorrow. He told her leaving like this made no sense. Ava stopped near the door. She turned slowly, meeting his eyes with clarity he had not seen in years. I already talked, she said. You just didn't listen. Arthur felt something break open. He raised his voice without realizing it. He demanded she stay. He reminded her of their marriage. He insisted this was temporary. Ava listened without responding. His words slid past her. For the first time, Arthur felt powerless. Not because she challenged him, but because she no longer engaged. Control requires participation. Ava had withdrawn hers completely. Arthur stepped closer, lowering his voice, trying a softer approach. He apologized without specificity. He promised change without detail. Ava reached for the door handle. This isn't a threat, she said. It's an ending. Arthur felt the floor shift beneath him. The certainty he relied on disappeared. He realized he did not know how to stop her, and that terrified him. Ava opened the door and stepped into the night. The air felt cooler, lighter. She breathed deeply for the first time in weeks. Arthur stood behind her, stunned. He called her name again, quieter now. He waited for hesitation, for doubt, for the pause that would allow him back in. Ava did not pause. She crossed the threshold with purpose. The door closed gently behind her, not slammed, not dramatic. Final. Arthur reached for the handle too late. The sound of the lock settling echoed louder than any argument could have. He stood alone in the hallway, bagless, breathless, unsure what to do with his hands. Eva moved away from the house without looking back. She did not run. She did not hurry. Each step felt grounded. Arthur tried calling her phone. It rang unanswered. He sent a message, then another. No response followed. For the first time, he felt absence immediately. Eva disappeared from his reach, not as punishment, but as consequence. Arthur leaned against the door, sliding down until he sat on the floor. Control had failed him. Not because Eva took it, but because he gave it away over time. Outside, Eva walked into a future she had already chosen. And Arthur was left behind, realizing too late that silence was never safety. Eva arrived at the beachside villa just before dawn. The place was modest, chosen for distance rather than comfort. She unlocked the door, set her bag down, and stood still, listening to the quiet. No questions waited for her. No expectations pressed in. She stepped outside and faced the water. The horizon held steady. Waves moved with purpose, arriving and leaving without apology. Eva felt her shoulders loosen. For the first time in a long while, nothing demanded her response. The villa offered simplicity. One bedroom, a small kitchen, windows that opened wide. Eva unpacked slowly, placing each item with care. She did not fill the space. She let it breathe. She walked the shoreline later that morning, bare feet, in cool sand, air on her skin. Each step felt intentional. She noticed details she had ignored for years. The sound of water pulling back, the steady rhythm of her breath. Being alone did not frighten her. It clarified her thoughts. Without noise, she heard herself again. Eva sat on the porch and watched the day unfold. She made simple meals. She rested when tired. She wrote without editing her thoughts. No one interrupted. No one needed managing. Peace did not arrive as joy. It arrived as steadiness. She realized then how long she had lived braced for reaction. Here, nothing reacted to her presence. The space accepted her as she was. Alone did not feel like loss. It felt like room. Eva stopped filling silence the way she once had. She let mornings begin without plans. She let evenings end without review. Silence became a companion rather than something to solve. She noticed how her body responded. Shoulders lowered. Breathing slowed. Sleep came easily. Her thoughts lined up without effort. In the quiet, memories surfaced without pain. She observed them as they passed. Moments of love, moments of neglect. She did not argue with them. She did not defend anyone. She let truth stand on its own. Silence taught her something words never had. She did not need to explain her choice to leave in order for it to be valid. She did not need agreement to confirm clarity. Eva limited contact with the world outside. She answered messages sparingly. She did not check updates tied to Arthur's life. She chose what entered her space. The absence of constant explanation felt freeing. She realized how often she had spoken to maintain balance rather than honesty. Here, no balance needed managing. She listened to the sound of waves at night. The repetition steadied her. Nothing demanded more than presence. Healing did not rush her. It unfolded gently. Eva felt no urgency to decide what came next. She allowed herself to exist without resolution. That permission mattered. Silence did not erase her pain. It gave it space to settle without ruling her. She began to trust herself again. Eva returned to routines she once loved. Morning walks, reading without distraction, writing for herself alone. She moved through days guided by interest rather than obligation. She noticed how capable she felt. She handled practical tasks with ease. She planned her time without compromise. She made decisions quickly and trusted them. Identity returned in fragments. Not the woman defined by marriage. Not the woman waiting. The woman who knew her values and lived by them. Eva reflected on choices she had made in the past. She did not judge them. She acknowledged growth. She saw how adaptation had slowly cost her voice. Here, her voice returned quietly. She began dressing for comfort and confidence, rather than approval. She chose clothes that felt like her. She smiled when she caught her reflection, not because she looked polished, but because she looked honest. Eva felt whole without validation. She realized she had always been complete. She had simply placed that completeness second for too long. The question of Arthur lingered without urgency. She did not avoid it. She did not chase it. She let it remain unanswered. Reconnection with herself came first. That order mattered. Eva understood her worth most clearly when she stopped defending it. She did not rehearse conversations. She did not imagine apologies. She focused on alignment. Worth, she realized, did not require recognition to exist. It required respect to remain. She acknowledged the love she once shared with Arthur, without diminishing herself. She allowed complexity without confusion. Loving him had not been wrong. Staying silent too long had been costly. Eva considered whether she would ever let him back in. The thought did not frighten her. It did not comfort her either. It remained open, dependent on action rather than words. Peace settled into something steady, not temporary, not fragile. Eva felt grounded. She no longer measured time by absence. She measured it by presence within herself. The sea remained constant. The villa stayed quiet. Eva stood centered in her life again. Alone did not mean abandoned. Alone meant unburdened. And as Eva watched the sun lower toward the water, one truth stayed clear. If Arthur returned to her life, it would be by invitation, not default. If he did not, she would remain whole. Peace had taught her that. The end came quietly. No argument, no scene, no pleading. The woman Arthur had relied on simply stopped answering his calls the way she once did. Messages went unread longer. Plans shifted without explanation. Eventually, she said what had already been clear. "This isn't working." Arthur stood still as she spoke. He expected negotiation. He expected emotion. What he received was distance. She had entered his life during certainty and left when uncertainty arrived. She told him she wanted stability, not complication. She said she had never agreed to wait in the background of a marriage she did not own. Arthur listened, stunned by how familiar her words sounded. When she left, the space she occupied vanished quickly. There was no adjustment period, no grief ritual. Her absence revealed how little substance had held the arrangement together. Arthur returned home alone that night. The house felt larger than before, quieter. He noticed details he had ignored for years. The echo of his footsteps, the emptiness of shared spaces. He realized then that the relationship had filled convenience, not connection. It had given him an image that worked until pressure arrived. Without Eva, without the other woman, Arthur stood surrounded by success and felt nothing settle. For the first time, he understood that replacement had never been the answer. It had only delayed loss. The collapse did not hurt the way he expected. It clarified. Arthur's name carried more weight than ever. Meetings multiplied. Deals closed. Recognition followed. From the outside, everything pointed upward. Inside, something felt hollow. He stood in rooms filled with people who praised him, yet no one asked how he felt. Conversations stayed focused on outcomes. Performance replaced connection. Applause replaced presence. Arthur noticed how quickly moments passed without impact. Success arrived and moved on. He felt no satisfaction linger. He remembered when Eva used to ask questions that slowed him down. When wins felt shared. When losses felt softened by understanding. Without her, nothing anchored him. Public spaces felt louder. He spoke more, yet felt less heard. He smiled automatically. He delivered confidence without conviction. Arthur began to dread quiet moments. They exposed the emptiness he had avoided. He realized then that power without intimacy offers no comfort. Achievement without alignment provides no rest. His life looked full. It felt vacant. Arthur tried filling the gap with more work, more commitments, more control. Nothing eased the weight. He understood then that success had never been the issue. It was the way he had chosen it over presence. That realization stayed with him, heavy and unavoidable. Arthur spent a long evening alone, reviewing choices without distraction. He traced patterns he had ignored. Each led back to the same source. Fear, not fear of loss. Fear of judgment. He had hidden Eva because he believed the world demanded a certain image. He feared being questioned. He feared appearing vulnerable. He feared choosing love over perception. Arthur admitted what he had never named. He was afraid to stand beside her publicly because he did not trust his own worth without validation. He realized how often he had shaped decisions to protect ego rather than relationship. How often he had mistaken control for leadership. Fear had guided him more than ambition ever had. Arthur recognized the cost clearly now. He had built a life admired by many and shared with none. He sat with that truth, without excuse, without justification. It hurt. Yet the clarity mattered. Arthur understood that shame had never been about Eva. It had been about himself, about how he believed others saw him, about how he believed he needed to be seen. Naming that truth changed something inside him. Fear lost power once acknowledged. Arthur did not rush to fix anything. Panic tempted him, but he resisted. He knew reaction would undo sincerity. Regret settled differently than he expected. It did not push him toward grand gestures. It pulled him inward. He thought about Eva often, not as possession, as presence. He remembered how steady she was, how honest, how she never asked him to perform for her. Arthur admitted he had failed her long before she left. He had failed to listen, failed to stand openly, failed to choose respect over comfort. The question remained, was change possible, or was this only fear of consequence? Arthur did not answer it immediately. He understood one thing clearly. If growth did not cost him something real, it would not last. He accepted that he might never earn Eva's trust again. That truth humbled him. Arthur chose responsibility without expectation. If you believe growth should cost something, like and share this story. Real change begins where comfort ends. Arthur stood alone with regret that felt earned, and for the first time, he did not run from it. Arthur arrived without announcement, no calls ahead, no messages asking permission. He stood outside the villa just after sunrise, hands empty, posture unguarded. He did not pace. He did not rehearse. He waited. When Eva opened the door, he did not step forward. "I won't stay long," he said. "I only wanted to see you." The words carried no pressure, no expectation. Eva studied him carefully. He looked different, not weaker, quieter, the kind of quiet that comes from restraint rather than fear. Arthur did not apologize right away. He did not explain what he had learned or how much he had suffered. He understood that explanations often center the speaker. He did not want the moment to revolve around him. "I'm not here to fix anything," he said. "I'm here because I needed to acknowledge what I broke." Eva stepped aside and let him enter. Not as permission, as observation. They sat across from each other, space between them deliberate. Arthur kept his hands visible. He did not cross his arms. He did not lean forward. He stayed where he was placed. "I won't defend what I did," he said. "I won't explain it away. I know I hid you because I was afraid. And I know that fear cost you more than it cost me." Eva listened without reaction. Arthur felt the urge to say more. Arthur felt the urge to say more. He resisted it. "I don't expect anything," he continued. "I only wanted you to know I see it now. And I accept whatever you decide." He stopped speaking. Eva noticed the difference immediately. He was not asking to be understood. He was accepting judgment. That mattered. Eva did not respond right away. She stood and poured water into 2 glasses, placing one near Arthur without ceremony. The act was calm, measured, not hospitality, not rejection. "I need you to hear this clearly," she said at last. "I am not interested in rebuilding what existed before." Arthur nodded once. "That version of us required me to shrink," she continued. "I will not do that again, not privately, not publicly." Arthur did not interrupt. "If you are here hoping for forgiveness," Eva said, "you will not find it quickly. If you are here hoping for access, you will not receive it automatically." She sat across from him, posture steady. "I am not angry," she said. "I am careful." Arthur accepted the words without reaction. He did not argue intention. He did not describe effort. He let her define the space. Eva felt the balance shift. For the first time, she was not negotiating safety. She was setting structure. I decide what happens next, she said. And that decision will be based on behavior, not language. Arthur acknowledged it. I understand, he said. I will not ask for more than you offer. Ava watched him closely. He did not appear wounded by her firmness. He appeared relieved by clarity. That told her something. Boundaries did not push him away. They steadied him. Ava spoke next about moments Arthur had never witnessed from her perspective. The dinners alone, the events watched through screens, the slow erasure that came without argument. Arthur listened without interruption. His instinct to explain surfaced briefly. He restrained it. He understood now that listening meant allowing discomfort to remain. When Eva paused, he did not rush to fill the space. You don't need to respond, she said. I'm not asking for agreement. I'm stating what happened. Arthur nodded again. I hear it, he said, and I accept it. The simplicity of his response surprised her. She continued, speaking plainly about how silence had cost her identity, how patience had been mistaken for consent, how love had turned conditional without her permission. Arthur did not soften the truth. He did not challenge memory. He did not ask her to see his side. He listened. That restraint carried weight. Ava noticed something else. He did not promise change. He did not swear devotion. He did not present himself as transformed. He stayed present. When she finished, Arthur spoke carefully. I won't tell you I understand fully, he said. I won't claim growth until it shows. I only know I failed you by choosing comfort over courage. Ava studied his face. There was no performance there, only accountability. For the first time, hope appeared. Not as optimism, as possibility, cautious, conditional, earned. Arthur rose to leave without prompting. He did not assume the visit would extend. He thanked Ava for listening and stepped toward the door. She stopped him. If you stayed, she asked, what would change when people were watching? Arthur turned back slowly. The question landed heavier than any accusation. He understood its meaning instantly. He did not answer right away. I would stand beside you, he said. Not because it's easier, because it's right. And if I ever hesitated again, you would see it, not feel it later. Eva held his gaze. And when fear returns, she asked, what will you choose? Arthur did not offer certainty. I will choose transparency, he said. And if I fail, you will know immediately. I will not decide for you again. Eva stepped back. That answer matters, she said. But answers aren't enough. I know, Arthur replied. Consistency is the only proof. He left without asking what came next. Ava stood alone, the door closed, heart steady. She did not know yet if she would let him return. But for the first time, she believed change was possible. And that belief rested entirely in her hands. Eva chose the moment herself. No announcement preceded it. No schedule adjusted around it. She did not arrive early to prepare the space, and she did not arrive late to test reactions. She arrived when she was ready. Arthur noticed her across the room before anyone else did. He did not move toward her immediately. He waited, allowing her to enter fully on her own terms. That pause mattered. Ava stood tall, posture calm, expression composed. She did not search for approval. She did not scan faces for reaction. She walked with certainty built over time, not courage summoned on demand. Arthur joined her only when she looked at him. Their exchange held no urgency, no performance, just alignment. This return was not about reclaiming status. It was about presence. Eva was not stepping back into a role. She was stepping forward as herself. People noticed, but no one questioned. The space adjusted naturally. Conversations slowed. Attention shifted. Ava did not shrink under it. She met it evenly. Arthur felt the difference immediately. Standing beside her did not feel risky. It felt grounding. He did not feel the urge to manage perception. He felt the responsibility to honor it. Ava remained attentive to her own comfort. She stayed near exits. She spoke when she wished. She left when she chose. Arthur followed her pace without comment. This return carried clarity. Ava was not testing reconciliation. She was demonstrating autonomy. And Arthur understood that if she stood beside him now, it was because she wanted to, not because she had been asked. Arthur introduced Eva simply. This is my wife, he said. No explanation followed, no story attached, no attempt to frame history. He did not soften the moment with humor or deflect attention. He stated the truth plainly and stood by it. Ava noticed the absence of hesitation. Arthur did not glance around to gauge response. He did not measure acceptance. He held his posture steady and allowed the introduction to stand. That steadiness mattered more than words. People responded naturally. Some smiled. Some nodded. Some asked Eva questions directly. Arthur did not answer for her. He did not redirect conversation. He let her speak for herself. Ava felt equality settle into the space. Not declared. Practiced. Arthur remained attentive without hovering. He did not position himself between Eva and others. He did not guide her movements. He respected her agency. This was new, and it showed. Eva observed Arthur closely. He did not flinch when attention turned their way. He did not retreat into distance. He remained present. Pride replaced fear, not pride in ownership. Pride in partnership. Ava recognized the shift clearly. Arthur was no longer protecting image. He was honoring connection. The difference could not be mistaken. She did not need reassurance. She witnessed proof. The other woman was not mentioned, not privately, not publicly. Her absence required no explanation. Arthur did not address it because it no longer shaped his life. Ava did not ask about it because it no longer shaped her decision. The space once occupied by replacement had dissolved quietly. No tension followed it. No questions lingered. What had ended did not deserve ceremony. Eva noticed how little energy the past demanded now. She did not feel threatened by what once hurt her. Distance had done its work. Arthur did not perform remorse. He did not overcorrect. He simply behaved differently. That difference mattered. Ava observed how consistently he chose transparency, how often he deferred to her presence, how he checked in without making it visible. Trust did not return all at once. It rebuilt in moments, in pauses, in restraint. Arthur did not rush intimacy. He did not assume access. He allowed closeness to grow at Eva's pace. Ava appreciated that care. It made safety possible again. Nothing dramatic marked this shift. No declarations, no promises spoken aloud. Change appeared in repetition, and repetition made it real. Intimacy returned quietly. Ava and Arthur found connection in small gestures, shared glances, gentle touches, unspoken understanding. They rebuilt closeness through consistency rather than intensity. Arthur did not claim progress. He practiced it. Ava noticed how he listened without correction, how he included her without managing her, how he respected her independence without retreating. Equality settled into the relationship naturally. Ava no longer felt the need to protect herself from being diminished. Arthur no longer felt the urge to manage perception. They moved together with awareness. Love felt different now. Not louder, not brighter, steadier. Eva recognized that choice defined this phase. She stayed because she wanted to. She remained because effort met expectation. Arthur understood that this standing beside him was not permanent by default. It was maintained through action. That awareness sharpened his care. The audience watching this story could see it clearly. Love rebuilt slowly holds weight. Trust earned patiently holds strength. Eva stood beside Arthur by choice, and Arthur stood beside Eva without fear. That balance restored what had been lost, not through spectacle, through respect. Eva did not look back at the moment she left as an act of courage. She saw it as correction. Walking away taught her how much of herself she had misplaced while trying to preserve peace. Silence had kept the household calm, yet it had slowly emptied her of voice. Choosing herself was not dramatic. It was practical. It required honesty without cruelty and firmness without apology. Ava learned that dignity survives only when it is practiced daily, not when it is defended after harm arrives. She understood now that love should never require disappearance. Presence matters. Visibility matters. Being chosen publicly carries weight because it confirms respect, not ownership. Ava also learned patience has limits. Endurance does not equal strength when it costs identity. Strength appears when boundaries remain intact under pressure. The time alone reshaped her priorities. She learned to measure relationships by behavior rather than promises. She learned to trust consistency more than language. She learned that love grows safest where both people stand fully present. Most importantly, Ava learned she was whole before anyone recognized her worth. Leaving did not complete her. It reminded her of who she had always been. She returned to the relationship without fear because she no longer depended on it to define her value. That shift changed everything. Ava stayed because effort matched respect, because choice replaced obligation, because she no longer needed to stay quiet to be loved. Walking away did not end love. It taught her how to receive it correctly. Arthur had believed success could protect him from consequence. Losing Eva dismantled that belief completely. He learned that power does not shield against regret. It sharpens it. For the first time, Arthur experienced absence as accountability, not punishment, not revenge. Consequence. He learned that silence can signal departure long before doors close. Arthur understood then how fear had shaped his choices. Fear of judgment. Fear of standing alone. Fear of choosing love over image. Each fear had felt justified at the time. Each choice had cost him deeply. Losing Eva taught him how easily comfort becomes avoidance. How quickly leadership turns into control when unchecked. How respect disappears when decisions exclude those most affected. Arthur learned that apology without change offers no repair. That listening matters more than explanation. That presence requires courage, not convenience. He also learned that redemption does not demand permission. It demands effort. Consistent, visible, accountable effort. Arthur stopped measuring success by recognition. He began measuring it by alignment. Did his actions match his values? Did his presence match his words? He learned that real partnership begins when fear no longer dictates behavior. Arthur did not earn reconciliation through suffering. He earned it through responsibility. Loss became instruction, and instruction became growth. Together, Eva and Arthur carried the lesson forward through daily practice. Love thrives where dignity remains intact. Trust rebuilds where behavior stays consistent. Choice sustains connection longer than obligation ever could. Their story did not resolve into perfection. It resolved into awareness. Each understood the cost of silence and the value of clarity. Each recognized how easily love falters when respect becomes optional. Walking away taught them that distance can restore balance. That separation clarifies intention. That returning should always be a choice, never an expectation. This lesson extends beyond them. Love requires visibility. Respect requires action. Growth requires cost. If you have stayed quiet to keep peace, remember this. Peace that silences you will not protect you. Love that asks you to disappear will not sustain you. Choosing yourself does not end relationships that matter. It reshapes them. Arthur and Eva learned this through lived experience, not theory. Through consequence, not instruction. Their second chance worked because it was earned. If this story stayed with you, subscribe for more stories about love, dignity, and second chances.